Is the actual pharmacist here your boss?
I am the pharmacist and the boss.
You own this place?
Yes, for 3 years now.
Huh, okay, sure. Well, like I said, I need those records now.
And like I said, those records are protected under HIPAA.
Right.
I legally can't show them to you.
Officer Ryan Callahan had no idea what he'd just walked into. In the next 11 minutes, he would lose his job, his pension, and his entire career. The woman standing behind that pharmacy counter had spent 3 years in law school, specifically studying cases like this. She knew every federal regulation he was about to violate, and the security cameras overhead were recording everything in crystal clear 4K video. This wasn't going to be another routine shakedown where someone nervously handed over information they didn't have to give. This was going to be a masterclass in constitutional rights, and it was all going to be captured on camera. Before we dive deeper into this incredible story, I need to ask you something. Where are you watching from right now? Drop your country or state in the comments below. And if you appreciate stories about people who stand up for their rights and know the law, please hit that subscribe button. This story is about to get intense, and you won't want to miss a single moment. Thank you. Erica Johnson was 34 years old and had been a licensed pharmacist for 8 years. But she wasn't just any pharmacist. After working in the field for 4 years and seeing how often pharmacies were targeted by law enforcement for fishing expeditions, she decided to go back to school. She enrolled in law school part-time while continuing to work, spending 3 grueling years studying health law, privacy regulations, and constitutional protections. She graduated with honors and passed the bar exam on her first attempt. She didn't practice as an attorney. She didn't need to. She went back to pharmacy work, but now she was armed with something most pharmacists didn't have: complete knowledge of the legal boundaries between law enforcement and healthcare providers. She knew HIPAA regulations forward and backward. She knew the Fourth Amendment protections that applied to businesses. She knew exactly when police could and couldn't access patient information. And she knew that many officers relied on intimidation and confusion about these laws to get information they weren't legally entitled to. Her pharmacy was located in a diverse neighborhood in Seattle, Washington. It was a small, independent pharmacy, not part of a major chain. Erica owned it. She employed 3 other pharmacists and 5 pharmacy technicians. The pharmacy served about 300 patients a day, many of them from marginalized communities, many of them on medications for chronic conditions, many of them dealing with the healthcare system's complexities every single day. Erica took patient privacy seriously, not just because the law required it, but because she understood that her patients trusted her with their most personal health information. Some were on HIV medications, some were on medications for mental health conditions, some were on hormone therapy, some were managing addiction recovery with medications like Suboxone. This wasn't just data to her. These were real people whose lives could be destroyed if their medical information ended up in the wrong hands. On that Tuesday afternoon in October, the pharmacy was quiet. A couple of customers were browsing the aisles. Erica was behind the pharmacy counter, reviewing a prior authorization request for a patient's diabetes medication. The bells above the front door chimed, and Officer Ryan Callahan walked in. Ryan Callahan was 42 years old, a 15-year veteran of the Seattle Police Department. He worked in the narcotics division and had a reputation for being aggressive in his investigations. He was also known among defense attorneys for cutting corners, making assumptions, and occasionally crossing legal lines in pursuit of what he considered the greater good. He had received several complaints over his career, but none had resulted in serious discipline. He was used to people doing what he said. He was used to his badge opening doors. He was used to intimidation working. Callahan walked directly to the pharmacy counter. He didn't introduce himself politely. He didn't ask if this was a convenient time. He just announced that he was conducting an investigation and needed access to security footage and patient records. Erica looked up from her computer and immediately recognized the situation for what it was: a fishing expedition. "Officer, I'm Erica Johnson, the head pharmacist and owner of this pharmacy," she said, her voice professional and measured. "Can you tell me specifically what you're investigating?" Callahan's response was vague. He said there had been reports of suspicious activity and that he needed to review recent transactions. He used that word, suspicious, like it was supposed to mean something legally significant. Erica knew it meant nothing. Quick question for everyone watching. Have you ever had someone in authority try to pressure you into doing something you knew wasn't legal? Type yes or no in the comments. Callahan leaned forward, placing both hands on the counter. His body language was meant to intimidate. It was a tactic he had used hundreds of times, and it usually worked. People got nervous. They backed down. They cooperated rather than face potential consequences. Erica didn't lean back. She didn't break eye contact. She just waited. "Ma'am, I'm going to be very clear with you," Callahan said, his voice lower but harder. "I'm conducting an official police investigation. Refusing to cooperate with a police investigation is obstruction. I don't think you want to be charged with obstruction." There it was, the threat, the implicit suggestion that if Erica didn't comply, she would face criminal charges. It was a bluff, and Erica knew it, but most people wouldn't know it. most people will hear obstruction and panic. Erica's response was measured. "Officer Callahan, I can see your badge number is 2847. I'm not obstructing anything. I'm following federal law. If you have a warrant or court order, I will comply immediately, but I cannot violate HIPAA regulations because you're asking me to." Callahan's expression shifted. "You know, in 15 years, I've dealt with a lot of pharmacies. Most people understand that cooperation makes things easier for everyone. But there's always a few who think they're smarter than everybody else, think they know better." Erica caught it. The shift in his tone, the implication. "I don't think I'm smarter than anyone," Erica said calmly. "I'm just following the law, the same law that applies to every pharmacy in this city." "Yeah, well, maybe where you come from, people do things differently," Callahan said, his voice carrying an edge now. "But here, we expect cooperation with law enforcement. We expect respect." "Where I come from," Erica repeated, her voice still calm, but her eyes sharp. "I'm from Seattle, officer, born and raised, and respect goes both ways. I respect your position, which is why I'm being very clear about what the law requires. I'm asking you to respect mine by following proper procedures." The pharmacy had gone very quiet. The couple of customers who had been browsing had noticed the confrontation and were watching from a distance. One of the pharmacy technicians, a young black woman named Shanice, had positioned herself where she could see everything that was happening, and the security cameras were capturing every moment. Callahan noticed the audience now. It seemed to make him angrier rather than more cautious. "You know what your problem is?" Callahan said, pointing a finger at Erica. "People like you come here, open these little shops, and you think the rules don't apply. You think because you've got some degree on the wall, you can talk down to people who've been protecting this community for 15 years. "People like me?" Erica said quietly. "What does that mean, officer?" "You know what it means," Callahan shot back. "I see it all the time. You people come in, set up shop in our neighborhoods, and suddenly you're experts on everything. Meanwhile, we're the ones dealing with the real problems here." "Our neighborhoods?" Erica repeated. "Officer, this is my neighborhood. I live 4 blocks from here. I serve this community. These are my patients you're talking about." One of the customers, an elderly white man, spoke up from near the vitamin aisle. "Officer, she's just doing her job. She's a good pharmacist. Been coming here for 2 years. Callahan spun toward him. "Sir, I'm going to need you to step back. This doesn't concern you." "Actually," Callahan said, turning back to Erica, his face flushed now, "since you want to be difficult about this, I think I need to conduct a full inspection of this facility. Make sure everything's up to code, make sure all your medications are properly accounted for. You know, in these neighborhoods, we find all kinds of irregularities when we actually look." Do you think Erica was right to keep pushing back? Let us know in the comments. This was a new tactic. If he couldn't get the records one way, he'd try another. He'd claim he was conducting some kind of safety inspection to give himself access to the pharmacy. It was transparent and it was desperate. Erica didn't miss a beat. "Code violations fall under the jurisdiction of the Washington State Department of Health, not local police," she said. "Our pharmacy was inspected by the Board of Pharmacy 6 weeks ago, and we're in full compliance. If you have specific concerns about pharmacy operations, you're welcome to file a complaint with the appropriate regulatory agency. But you don't have the authority to conduct an inspection without proper regulatory authorization." Callahan's hand moved to his radio. It was another intimidation tactic. The suggestion that he might call for backup, might turn this into a bigger situation, might make Erica's life more difficult. Erica noticed the movement. She had seen it before in other contexts. It was the physical tell of someone who was out of options. "Officer, before you make any calls, I want to be very clear about what's happening here," Erica said, her voice steady and professional. "You came into my pharmacy without a warrant or court order. You demanded access to protected health information. When I explained the legal requirements, you threatened me with criminal charges. When that didn't work, you claimed you needed to inspect the premises under a different jurisdiction. All of this is being recorded on our security system, and there are multiple witnesses present. If you continue this course of action, I will have no choice but to file a formal complaint with your department and potentially pursue a civil rights lawsuit for violation of HIPAA and Fourth Amendment protections." The silence that followed was heavy. Callahan stood there, hand still near his radio, face red, clearly furious, but also clearly aware that he had made a series of terrible decisions. He had walked into what he thought would be a simple intimidation situation and instead found someone who knew the law better than he did and wasn't afraid to use that knowledge. "I'll be back with the proper paperwork," Callahan finally said, trying to save face. "I look forward to seeing it," Erica replied. "And officer, when you do come back, please call ahead. We serve a lot of patients, and I'd like to minimize disruption to their care." Callahan turned and walked out of the pharmacy without another word. The door chimed behind him. The customers who had been watching slowly went back to browsing. Shanice walked over to the counter, her eyes wide. "Dr. Johnson, that was incredible. I've never seen anyone handle a cop like that." Erica smiled, but there was no triumph in her expression. just relief that it was over for the moment. "I just know the law," she said simply, "and I take my patient's privacy seriously." But it wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Erica did two things immediately after Callahan left. First, she saved all the security footage from the encounter to multiple secure locations. She knew from her legal training that evidence could disappear, so she made sure that wouldn't be possible. Second, she called the pharmacy's attorney, a healthcare law specialist named David Park, who had been advising the pharmacy for years. David listened to Erica's description of what happened and asked her to send him the security footage. He watched it once, then immediately called her back. "Erica, this is textbook civil rights violation," he said. "That officer had no legal basis for any of his demands or threats. You handled it perfectly, but we need to be proactive here. He's going to be angry, and angry police officers sometimes come back with friends." Erica understood. She asked David what he recommended. "File a formal complaint with Seattle PD immediately," David said. "We're going to document everything that happened while it's fresh. We're also going to send a letter to the department's legal counsel outlining the violations and putting them on notice. And we're going to prepare for the possibility that this officer tries to retaliate." Over the next 48 hours, Erica and David prepared a comprehensive complaint. It wasn't a simple form. It was a detailed legal document that outlined every violation, cited every applicable law, and included timestamp screenshots from the security footage. The complaint was 12 pages long and included exhibits. It was filed with the Seattle Police Department's Office of Police Accountability on Thursday morning. By Thursday afternoon, the complaint had reached the desk of Captain Lisa Morales, who supervised Officer Callahan's unit. Captain Morales was a 20-year veteran who had worked her way up through the ranks and had a reputation for taking accountability seriously. She watched the security footage, read the complaint, and immediately recognized this as a serious problem. She called Callahan into her office that same day. "Do you want to tell me what happened at Johnson's Pharmacy on Tuesday?" she asked, her tone making it clear this wasn't a casual conversation. Callahan tried to downplay it. He said he was following up on a lead, that the pharmacist was being difficult, that she was obstructing his investigation. He didn't mention the specific threats he made. He didn't mention that he had no warrant or legal authority. He portrayed himself as a cop trying to do his job and a civilian making it harder than it needed to be. Morales let him finish, then turned her computer monitor so Callahan could see it. The security footage was playing, audio and all. "Watch this, and then tell me again what happened," she said. Callahan watched. You could see on his face the moment he realized how bad this was. The footage showed everything. His vague justifications, his threats, his attempted intimidation, his claim about code violations, his racist comments about you people in our neighborhoods, all of it. When it was over, Morales asked him a simple question. Did you have a warrant, a court order, or any legal authorization to request that patient information? Callahan hesitated, then said no. Did you threaten her with obstruction charges for following federal privacy law? There was a longer hesitation. Yes, but I thought... You thought what? Morales interrupted. You thought HIPAA doesn't apply? You thought you could intimidate a healthcare provider into violating federal law? You thought your badge gives you the right to ignore constitutional protections? Callahan had no good answers, because there weren't any good answers. You're suspended, effective immediately, Morales said, pending a full investigation. Hand over your badge and weapon. You'll be contacted by Internal Affairs. The investigation that followed was thorough. Internal Affairs interviewed Erica, watched the security footage multiple times, reviewed Callahan's case files from the past several months, and discovered a pattern. This wasn't the first time Callahan had made questionable requests for information without proper authorization. It was just the first time someone had documented it so completely. They found 3 other cases in the previous 6 months where Callahan had requested medical records, financial records, or security footage without warrants. In those cases, people had complied because they didn't know they could say no. They didn't know the law. They just knew that saying no to a police officer felt dangerous. Type facts if you think this investigation should have happened years ago. Erica's case was different because she knew the law and had the confidence to assert her rights. But how many people had been violated before her because they didn't have that knowledge? How many patients' private medical information had been exposed illegally? How much evidence had been gathered in ways that violated the Fourth Amendment? The investigation report was damning. It found that Callahan had violated department policy, federal privacy regulations, and constitutional protections. It found that he had established a pattern of behavior that suggested he either didn't understand the legal limits of his authority or didn't care about them. It recommended termination. The Seattle Police Department announced Callahan's termination 6 weeks after the incident at Erica's pharmacy. The announcement was brief and professional, stating that an officer had been terminated for violations of department policy and federal regulations. They didn't name Callahan publicly, but his name was in the official termination documents that Erica's attorney obtained through public records requests. But the consequences didn't end with termination. Erica, with David Park's guidance, filed a federal civil rights lawsuit against Callahan personally and the Seattle Police Department under 42 U.S.C. 1983. The lawsuit alleged violation of Fourth Amendment protections against unreasonable searches, violation of privacy rights, attempted intimidation, and retaliation threats. The city's legal department reviewed the case and the evidence. They watched the security footage, they read the investigation report, they calculated the potential jury verdict if this case went to trial. A jury would see a professional, composed healthcare provider being threatened by a police officer for following the law. The verdict would be substantial, and the publicity would be devastating. They settled. The settlement terms were confidential, but sources familiar with the negotiations said it was in the mid-six figures. More importantly, the settlement included provisions that the city implement new training for all officers on HIPAA regulations, privacy rights, and the limits of police authority in healthcare settings. Erica personally reviewed the training materials before they were approved. The case also triggered a broader review of the Narcotics Division's practices. How many other officers were making requests without proper legal authorization? How much evidence had been gathered illegally? How many cases might need to be reviewed or even dismissed? The review found that several other officers had engaged in similar practices, though none as extensively as Callahan. The department implemented new oversight procedures requiring supervisors to approve all requests for protected information and mandating documentation of legal authority before such requests could be made. 6 months after the incident, Erica was contacted by a reporter from the Seattle Times who was working on a story about police overreach in medical settings. The reporter had obtained documents through public records requests and wanted Erica's perspective. Erica agreed to be interviewed, though she kept the focus on the systemic issues rather than her personal experience. The resulting article detailed how police departments nationwide were struggling with the balance between legitimate law enforcement needs and privacy protections in the digital age. It featured Erica's case as an example of what happens when officers don't understand or respect those boundaries. The article was picked up by national outlets and sparked conversations in law enforcement circles about the need for better training. Erica's pharmacy became something of a legend in the healthcare privacy community. She was invited to speak at pharmacy conferences about patient privacy and knowing your rights. She developed training materials that other pharmacies could use to educate their staff about when they could and couldn't share information with law enforcement. She consulted with the American Pharmacists Association on best practices for handling law enforcement requests. What would you do if you were in Erica's position? Comment below. But perhaps the most significant impact was on the patients in Erica's community. Word spread about what had happened. Patients who had been nervous about getting their prescriptions filled, worried about privacy, worried about their information getting into the wrong hands, felt safer. They knew their pharmacist would protect their information, even against pressure from law enforcement. One patient, a young woman on HIV medications, told Erica months later that she had almost switched pharmacies because she was worried about privacy. But after hearing about the incident with Officer Callahan, she knew she was in the right place. She knew Erica would protect her information no matter what. That's what this story is really about. It's not just about one pharmacist standing up to one officer. It's about the fundamental right to privacy in healthcare. It's about the fact that people shouldn't have to choose between getting necessary medical care and worrying about their information being exposed. It's about the fact that police officers, despite their important role in society, don't have unlimited authority. They work within constitutional and legal boundaries, and when they step outside those boundaries, there must be consequences. Ryan Callahan never worked in law enforcement again. After his termination from Seattle PD, he tried to get hired by suburban departments, but the termination for cause made it nearly impossible. He eventually left law enforcement entirely. Some people who followed the story felt this was too harsh. A career ended over one incident, but it wasn't one incident. It was a pattern of behavior that had finally been documented thoroughly enough to result in accountability. Erica continued running her pharmacy, now with even more respect from her community and her profession. She finished paying off her law school loans with part of the settlement money and used the rest to establish a small legal aid fund to help other healthcare providers who faced similar situations but couldn't afford legal representation. 3 years after the incident, Erica was invited to testify before the Washington State Legislature about proposed legislation to strengthen privacy protections for patients and clarify the procedures law enforcement must follow when requesting medical information. Her testimony, calm and factual, was instrumental in the bill's passage. The pharmacy where it all happened still stands in that same Seattle neighborhood. It still serves those same 300 patients a day. The security cameras are still running, always recording. And Erica Johnson still takes patient privacy as seriously as she did on that October afternoon when Officer Callahan walked through her door expecting easy compliance. The signs behind the pharmacy counter now include not just the required pharmacy board notices, but also information about patient privacy rights. One sign, in multiple languages, informs patients that their medical information is protected by federal law and that the pharmacy will never share it without proper legal authorization. It's a small sign, but patients notice it, and they feel safer because of it. Do you think more healthcare providers should get legal training like Erica did? Let me know in the comments. This story matters for several reasons. First, it demonstrates that rights are meaningless if people don't know they have them. Erica wasn't doing anything heroic or extraordinary by knowing HIPAA regulations. That's information anyone can learn. But because she took the time to truly understand it, she was able to protect not just herself, but potentially hundreds of patients whose information might have been improperly disclosed. Second, it shows that authority figures are not infallible and are not above the law. Officer Callahan had 15 years of experience, but that experience didn't include proper understanding of privacy regulations. His badge gave him certain powers, but it didn't give him the power to ignore federal law. And when he acted as if it did, there were consequences. Third, it illustrates the importance of documentation. Without the security footage, this would have been Erica's word against a 15-year police veteran. Who would have been believed? Probably not the pharmacist. But with clear, unambiguous video evidence, there was no way to dispute what happened. Fourth, it highlights systemic problems in law enforcement training. Callahan wasn't a rogue officer doing something wildly outside norms. He was doing something that many officers do, making requests without proper legal authority, and relying on intimidation and confusion to get compliance. The fact that it took Erica's case to trigger a broader review of practices suggests that these violations were happening regularly and being overlooked. Finally, it reminds us that standing up for rights isn't just about individual vindication. When Erica refused to comply with Callahan's illegal demands, she wasn't just protecting herself or her pharmacy. She was protecting every patient whose information he might have requested. She was establishing a precedent that other healthcare providers could point to. She was forcing systemic changes that would protect countless people in the future. The conversation that started in Erica's pharmacy that October afternoon rippled outward in ways that neither she nor Callahan could have anticipated. It changed policies in the Seattle Police Department. It influenced state legislation. It became a teaching tool in pharmacy schools and law enforcement academies. It empowered other healthcare providers to know and assert their rights. And it all happened because one person knew the law and wasn't intimidated into ignoring it. If you found this story valuable, here's what I want you to do. Share it with any healthcare providers you know. Share it with anyone who works in a field where they handle confidential information. Share it with anyone who has ever felt pressured by authority figures to do something they knew wasn't right. This story needs to be told and retold because these situations happen every day, and most of them don't end with accountability. Make sure you're subscribed to this channel because I cover more stories like this. Stories about ordinary people who know their rights and refuse to be intimidated. Stories about accountability and justice. Stories that need to be heard. Hit that subscribe button right now and leave a comment letting me know. What's the most important lesson you're taking away from Erica's story? Is it the importance of knowing your rights, the power of documentation, the need for better training, the value of standing firm even when it's uncomfortable? Thank you for watching this story all the way through. Thank you for caring about rights, privacy, and accountability. These stories matter, and your engagement helps them reach more people who need to hear them. Remember, your rights only protect you if you know what they are and you're willing to assert them. Erica Johnson knew hers. Officer Ryan Callahan didn't know his limits, and that made all the difference. See you in the next story.